Hello everyone, welcome back to a guy called Henry. Canelo Alvarez versus Turki Alalshikh, not in the boxing ring, but as ever, in the business of boxing. There are multiple clashes that happen in boxing in and out of the ring, and this is another example of that. And Canelo has sent a clear message to Turki. This is my game. You're going to play by my rules. I am the king, and I'm not going to do things the way you want to do them. So we're going to take a look today at a little bit of interview footage. We're going to react to some of the things Canelo has said, some of the things that Turki has said, try and pick through the weeds of the situation and try and understand where the two are coming from. At the end of the day, the business of boxing is one that can be very, very frustrating at times. And I think this is the first sort of pushback we've seen to the Saudis. And it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. So let's get into it.
Super middleweight, junior middleweight, what do you feel like you are naturally?
I feel great in 168 in super middleweight. Yeah, I feel great. But I think middleweight is my weight class. But I feel great in this weight class. I feel strong.
That's actually a really interesting question because obviously, you know, we're so used to Canelo bouncing around these different weight divisions. He's landed at 168. Seems to be about as heavy as he can go and still beat elite opposition. And interesting, that's an interesting question to ask him. What do you think you actually are? And he says, I think I'm a 160 pounder, but I feel amazing at 168 pounds. You know, when you get later on in your career as a fighter, especially when you've had a tough career like Canelo, a decorated career, a long career, you know, he turned pro when he was like 16 or something crazy. You know, you need to find the right place for your body at the right time. And if he thinks 168 is where he feels at his best, then that's great. And that is kind of part of the battle. There's been a few fighters that have moved around in weight and then maybe you kind of thought they moved up because they were just trying to rebrand themselves. But I think John Ryder was a great example of that, of somebody who went up to 168 and, you know, performed great. And I think he was as low as 154 at one point, John Ryder. I remember he had a fight with Billy Joe Saunders. No, I think he was 160. Yeah, I believe he was 160, John Ryder. But anyway, the point is he always looked fine at that weight, but then he went up and it worked for him. So we've seen it with a few other guys. One other guy at that gym was Conor Ben. Went up to 147. Of course, with the allegations that are out there around some of these guys, you do wonder how they've done it. But regardless, that he's found a weight class that works for him. So fair play. And yeah, I'd like to see him continue at super middleweight for the foreseeable. But it is easy to forget that he is probably more like a 160 pounder, which adds another element to this sort of Crawford narrative.
We think this is the most interesting fight for the people. Now, Mexico versus Puerto Rico is always a great fight there, and that's why we choose this fight.
He has a.
We coming for the fight in Mexico versus Mexico was very good fight, and then now is the turn of Edgar Berlanga.
Yeah, I mean, is anybody really buying that Edgar Berlanga was the best option out there when Benavidez is right there? You know, it's one of them. It's one of them. We all know what's happening here. You know, it's a case of risk reward. Although I have yet to assess Edgar Berlanga, and so I don't want to say too much. And I will do that in due course. I will do a full game film analysis of the two guys and make my prediction then. But yeah, I think it's pretty clear right now. It's a classic case of we've gone with Berlanga, but it's like a cost risk analysis essentially.
Do you have any advice for any of the young kids that's out there that's looking at you as a hero? You have any advice for them as far as boxing business?
I think if I can help the fighters about that, is for me, I'm gonna do it in some point, because you know the fighters always get the less money. I know I generate a lot of money, right? A lot of money, so but I take 80% of everything.
So that includes like the concessions that's at the arena. You take the food money, T-shirt money.
If you take a soda in the arena, I get it.
That's crazy. So Canelo says he takes 80% of everything, and jokes including the sodas. But I think he's actually being serious. I mean, look, there's a reason he's been able to go without a promoter for a while now, and I know he does collaboration promotions with certain guys, but you know, for them, for example, with Matchroom, if they're taking 20% and he's taking 80%, it still kind of makes sense because, you know, you get the credibility and legitimacy of promoting a Canelo show, especially when you're trying to grow in a new territory like the US or Mexico. So it makes sense why you would take the short end of the stick. And all power to Canelo for being able to do that. It's really impressive. Anyone should strive for that. Like I said, the issue is he's literally just told you we picked Berlanga because it's Mexico versus Puerto Rico, but then you get the real reason right now, which is that we control the show, we control the money. So, you know, the appetite to take a risk in that scenario goes down considerably, especially when you're taking home all the money like that. He could do, you know, a couple of fights that were deemed to be less tricky and make a lot more money than if he just does one big fight under a promoter where they're taking the lion's share of the money. So, or at least a bigger cut of the whole thing. So, fair play to Canelo. You see other guys out there trying to do what he's done, go it alone, and frankly, you've got to be in a position of significant power to be able to do it. So, he's talking about advising young fighters. You know, fair enough, but I think that in order to do that, you've got to reach a ridiculous level of fame and power and commercial pulling power to be able to execute that. But you can understand why the sort of advances of the Saudis, as we've seen, have not been sort of welcomed with open arms by Canelo, which I want to switch to now. We're going to take a quick look at an interview he did, I think it was with Fight Hype, specifically about that situation with Turkey.
Yo creo que Crawford needs to fight Teofimo first, and then we'll see, right? At the end of the day, like I said before, I'm not asking for that fight. They want to make that fight because it's a payday, obviously. But
so he's sort of saying Crawford should fight Teofimo. I guess that'd be at 147 if that was to happen. I don't see anyone calling for that fight, really, especially since Crawford's now moved up to 154. Yeah, so Teofimo's last fight was at 140. I think he did say something about moving up to 147 at the time, but Crawford's not even there anymore. I think Crawford against Teofimo against Boots would be interesting to me. That could be a good fight to make. Ryan Garcia, when he's back in the mix, I'm sure he'll come back potentially at 147. That could be interesting. But right now, for me, I don't know. I mean, Canelo's just deflecting basically, and his countryman Teofimo is right there, so I guess it makes sense.
Turki has said that he's not interested in the fight anymore. What's your reaction or your response to that?
my response to Turkey is this. Yesterday, they text me. They text me and say, we can talk about the fight in February with Crawford. Super Bowl, right? Yeah. They text me yesterday, and I say, look, I'm not going to talk about any other fight. I'm focused 100% on this fight. Look, I don't like the way he talk, and I'm not in this position because of any. I'm in this position. If he wants to work with me, it's in my way, not in their way. I don't need it.
Canelo firmly putting his foot down there and being like to Turki, I am the boss here. And, you know, I actually enjoy hearing him talk like this about someone else who is very, very powerful. Probably, well, definitely more powerful than Canelo. Infinite financial backing, ridiculous resources. He has a state fund behind him, essentially. And I don't like when you see people curbing the way that they speak in order to appease somebody just because they're wealthy. And that is what you see with the Saudis all the time in boxing. And I actually really respect Canelo for standing his ground and being like, look, I've got my own success. I've got my own business. He's basically saying this is my game and I decide how it goes. And as much as I want to see collaboration in boxing and I want to see everybody working together, I have to say I have some personal respect for Canelo on that level. You know, he's not just rolling over and being like, oh yeah, you know, whatever you say, Turkey. He's like, nah, like I make loads of money. I control my own career. I control my own shows. I'm not going to fight somebody just because you're telling me I've got to fight them. And fair play. Like he must be wondering where's this guy even come from? You know, he's been in the game a long time, Canelo. He's seen multiple different promotional outfits disappear. TV networks that were once in the game no longer running. And and he has the longevity right now on top of everybody. So he's not going to be told who to fight by somebody who's come into the game purely based on the fact they've got a big checkbook. Equally, I do want to see them working together. I want them to make fights together. I want to see different matchups, and I don't want to see anybody breaking away from this potential opportunity to make boxing a global sport with a global league of some description. The extremely powerful fighters that already exist in the sport were always going to be a problem with that sort of thing. And, you know, I think it's Canelo and Tank are the two that are currently not working with Turkey that you would need to get on board probably. And it's very challenging, but Canelo has sent a clear message here. You know, I'm not to be challenged. I'm not to be messed with. I run my career. I don't care what you say. And this Crawford fight that you're talking about, I'm not interested in it. if he beats Crawford, what does it do for his career? Well, unless the money's right, which I'm assuming it's not, and has he even been made an offer? We'll find out, I suppose. He might mention that. But, you know, if it's not for huge money, if he wins, it does nothing for his career because they say, well, he beat a small guy who'd moved up from 135 pounds originally. If he loses, it can tarnish his legacy. So there's really no benefit to him in fighting Crawford unless there is a significant chunk of money put on the table. I mean, I would make Canelo the favorite right now, but I think it would be a tricky fight. But I think Canelo would be the favorite, especially at 168 pounds.
What didn't you like about how he approached? Like, what
It's not the way to approach. It's not the way to approach to me. Look, I respect everybody and I respect Turkey, but look, if he wants to work with me, it need to be in my way.
You said you feel Crawford is easy. You felt.
Yeah, just the same thing again. If he wants to work with me, it needs to be my way. I didn't like the way he approached me. I don't know exactly how Turkey did that. I know there was a statement put out on Twitter. I'll pull it up in a minute. So potentially that is what he's referring to. Let's actually have a quick look at that. Let's find that post on Twitter. Okay, here we are. I heard what Canelo said, that he respects me but doesn't like the way we do business. As for him respecting me, it doesn't matter to me if he does or not. As for the way I do business, I know why he doesn't like it. Because I only target big fights at fair prices. So of course anyone who likes easy fights won't like that. Yeah, I can see why Canelo didn't like what he said. And I know how he feels after losing to Bivol, so he's been looking for easier fights ever since. Also, I'm not the one who's afraid of fighting Benavidez or Crawford. Therefore, I knew he was wasting our time and making excuses with big amounts of money that can't be paid. So I'm continuing my way to make fights that serve the boxing world, and he's on his way to making easy, show-only fights. Well, that's probably not the way to get Canelo in the ring, as we've just heard. Canelo has significant power himself, and frankly, he probably deserves that amount of money because he could probably get a similar amount if this 80% thing is accurate by fighting guys who are a lot worse than Crawford. Because I know, contrary to what everyone is saying, that the Saudis are trying to recoup the money that they're investing in boxing. You know, I know that I think Ade was saying that the tickets out in LA weren't cheap. You know, someone was saying, I can't remember who it was, it might have been Ade, saying that these tickets, I think it was Hatman, was saying the tickets aren't cheap out in LA. You know, they don't want to make a significant loss on this. They realize that early on they're going to have to write off a certain amount of money because that's how a lot of businesses work. But don't get it twisted, guys. They're not just fans chucking a load of money at it. They're very smart. They're trying to build a lasting legacy. They're trying to build a foothold in the boxing business. And, you know, the fighting words from Turkey here, I don't think this is productive. I don't think this is helpful if they want to get fights done with Canelo in the future. So if Canelo, within the context of boxing, because of the fact the Saudis do want to turn a profit, he is a financial competitor for them. And that's the reality of it. So already we're seeing fractures away from this kind of union that's been happening between certain promotional outfits. And will we see Canelo in the ring with a Crawford? Maybe. I definitely don't think he's scared of Crawford. I just think he knows that it's kind of a lose-lose for him. The Benavidez one is a little bit of a different story. I've gone on the record. I wanted to see that fight next. I wanted that to be the fight Canelo made. Again, that would be a tough day at the office. I still think it's a 50-50 fight with Benavidez, but very, very tough day at the office. And it's seen Benavidez move up in weight anyway, which is disappointing. I wanted to see that fight. And he finishes up by saying, you know, that Crawford is a great fighter and he doesn't have anything bad to say about him. So fair enough. There's obviously respect there. But guys, what do you think? Do you think that, you know, Canelo is being unreasonable here? Do you think that Turkey should have spoken to him in a different way? Do you think that, you know, any fights between these two can get made? I've got a feeling that this is going to be an ongoing thing where Canelo makes his own fights, continues to make his own fights, do his own business. It might see him working with the Saudis, but the money's just got to be right. I don't think that it's an unresolvable, unrectifiable situation. I just think they need to put a big bag of cash on the table if they want to get Canelo working with them. You know, guys, I've said before, I'm not massively keen on getting involved in this stuff, but I do think that it can be a little bit entertaining sometimes. I do think that it can provide context to certain fights and certain negotiations, etc. And, you know, we're all keen to find out what Crawford's going to do next. We're all keen to see what happens if Canelo can beat Berlanga. So I think it's important to assess this stuff from time to time. Guys, please subscribe to my channel if you've enjoyed this video. Hit the like button. I will definitely be doing a game form analysis of Canelo versus Berlanga. I probably will get that out to you next week. And maybe even this week if we have got time. But I'm excited to watch that fight, to see how things progress, and see what big fights are going to be made in the future. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. On to the next one.